Okay, now that you've had a chance to see all the things that are possible with direct mail, working with social media, email marketing, getting someone to schedule appointments for you so you can charge real hard. Now you've got a customer and you're talking to them. And now comes the hard part, the sales process. And we went to Dakota County Technical College to find Bob Voss, who's going to take you through that.
Thank you. Before I get started, I just want to thank Pat for New Business Minnesota. It is a really great publication, and my whole life is spent helping people start businesses, and Pat has been a big part of that. So why don't we give Pat a hand? You know me big time. Okay, my name is Bob Voss. I'm the business entrepreneur instructor of Dakota County Technical College. I also have another business. I've started and run 5 businesses. And one of the things I've always tried to do is help salespeople or biz owners. You see the word, they're biz owners. I'm going to describe that word in just a minute. But people are not, normally that are starting a business, are not professional salespeople. They do a whole bunch of other things as well. And so in my mind, the sales process has to be condensed and put into just a few things that they can remember. So I teach a 3-credit class on this, which is 48 hours. I do a day-long class, which is 8 hours. And now I have about 15 minutes to teach all of you this stuff. So let's get started. First off, who am I? My name is Bob Voss. I'm a college instructor of entrepreneurship. And in 2006, by the way, how many of you know where Dakota County Technical College is? Okay, it's this ugly concrete building out in Rosemount in a cornfield, right? If there is ever a nuclear holocaust, that's the building you want to go to, because no offense, it's the only building I've been into where you walk in the front door and you immediately lose cell phone coverage. It must be solid concrete and wrought iron. The good news is I don't teach there. In 2004, the city of Apple Valley built a new city hall, and the old city hall was available, and so Dakota County Technical College moved into this city hall along with St. Mary's and Inver Hills, and we formed what is called the Partners in Higher Education. And the college thought I was such a great instructor that they gave me my choice of offices. Now, because this was a city hall, the police department was there, so my choice of offices was jail cell number 1, jail cell number 2, jail cell number 3, or jail cell number 4. These are real jail cells. I closed the door, sat down in the stall, and there was your face staring me in the stall. And it freaked me out so much I had to go to a different stall because I just wanted to be alone. So not many people have been on the sides of semis and in women's bathrooms. Okay. I'm also a counselor with the SBDC. Does anybody know what SBDC stands for? Okay, if you do, that's great. It stands for Small Business Development Center. And as new business owners, it's a great way of getting free counseling services. There's 2 ways of getting counseling services as you start your business. One is SCORE, the other one is called the SBDC. Where you find out about this stuff is SBA.gov, and over the last 5 years I've helped about 200 businesses get off the ground, write business plans, grow their business, that sort of thing. I've also started and run 5 businesses, and I've raised a lot of money. In the mid-90s, I had a company called Video Buddy. I raised $8 million for that over a 6-year period, with the largest single check coming from one guy, and it was $3 million. How many of you have ever watched Shark Tank? Okay, everybody watch Shark Tank, right? Here's the interesting news. I have never dealt with a shark as an investor. I only like to deal with angels, and there's a big difference between them. Angel investors not only come into your business with money, but they also want to help you in some way, and I've got some great stories of how angels have helped me. I also hold 2 patents in what's called optical code technology. I run another business called Biz Owner Training. Am I going too fast for you? Oh, good. And I also created a new way of doing business plans called the 21-question business plan. Okay, that's me. Now, there's 2 words up here. One is called entrepreneur, you've all heard that word. The other one is biz owner, and I've kind of coined the word biz owner. What's an entrepreneur? We all know what that is. It's someone who starts and assumes the risk for a business venture, and I absolutely hate that word. I hate it for 2 reasons. One of the reasons I hate that word is because I have to spell it. And I am the business entrepreneur instructor at Dakota County Technical College. So do you know how many times on a freaking day I have to type that word? And every time I do, it sticks in my head and I don't get it right. So I was really frustrated one day, so I came up with a new word called biz owner. But the other reason I don't like Entrepreneur, if you look at all the publications that are out there on starting businesses, and because I'm a faculty member, I get all of these publications. All those articles are about people who want to change the world, have the next social media, all these other sort of things. They need to raise a lot of money. They have to hire lots of employees, and that's not where the market is for people who are starting businesses. In Minnesota last year, 80,000 businesses, new businesses filed with the Secretary of State in Minnesota, yet only 24% of them had one or more employees. So if 76% don't have an employee, what do the rest have? They have owners of the business. And if you file an LLC or sole proprietorship, you don't have to have employees, you have business owners. So I created a new word called biz owner. And it's someone who starts, owns, and operates and is responsible for everything in his or her business. They're starting the businesses because of the lifestyle it gives them, they're usually good at what they do, and these businesses can be bootstrapped. And these are the people that I deal with all the time. They may be consultants, they may be handyman, whatever they are. They're good at the work that they do, yet part of their job, if they're going to be successful, is they have to learn how to sell, and they have to do it quickly. They don't have time to take long classes, they don't have time to get a lot of experience. So what are 4 things that I could do and help them create a good sales force or salesperson right away? So these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about. And these are 4 habits to remember as you think about selling. The first one is you need to establish your credibility up front. And I just did that in this little presentation, and I'm going to talk about that. You need to spend some time each day and or week on finding new business. I call this a CAP. It stands for a customer acquisition plan. Also, in the whole sales process, presenting and everything else, what's the most important part? Sales happen during the Q&A process. They don't happen during reading business plans. They don't happen during presentations. The relationships are built with questions and answers going back and forth. So, as a business owner, you better be good at answering questions and answers. And the last one is try to make every customer a proven customer. In the presentation before last, the guy was showing a postcard up here, and he said it was missing something, and somebody from this side of the room said proof. I actually heard it. I don't know who it was, and the actual answer was there was no way of tracking it. But proof is really critical, and I'm going to talk more about that. Okay, so let's go through this. Habit number 1 is establish your credibility. And what I mean by this is whenever you meet a new prospect, somebody new for the first time, and what are salespeople taught to do when they meet somebody? They are taught to ask them questions to uncover needs, right? There's a step before that, and it's called establishing your credibility. It's a short 15 to 45 second credibility intro that is done before you start asking questions. If you look at all the community newspapers around here, they're all owned by ECM publications. I had the opportunity of being able to do about 30 hours of sales training for ECM publications with a grant from Dakota County Technical College. One of the things I taught these salespeople was that when you meet somebody new, establish your credibility up front. So one of the district managers was a guy named Tom West, and he runs the Morrison County Record, which is, I don't know, up near St. Cloud somewhere. Anyway, and he sent me this email that normally when he goes to a chamber event, at the end of the event, they pass out the mic, and he would stand up and say, Tom West, Regional Director of Morrison County Record. After going through some of the things that I did, the next time it happened, he stands up, Tom West, Regional Director, Morrison County Record. By the way, we hit every home in Morrison County once a week, and our readership is over 98%. Then he sat down. During the course of the networking afterwards, 4 people came up to him and said, I didn't know that, maybe we should think about newspaper advertising again. So establishing your credibility up front is really important. You want to highlight something about your product, service, your company, and you, and numbers are really important. If you're going to talk for 15 to 45 seconds, you want to throw a number in there because we have a tendency to remember numbers. One of the salespeople at ECM Publishing had sold $12 million of advertising over a 20-year period. Do you think she should include that in her 45-second introductory thing? Well, it may be a little brash, but she ended up doing it, and it turns out that's what people remember. Also, you usually want to give some benefit to the listener that you're the right person for the job. Now, why do you do this? Why should you do this? Well, number 1, it gives you a competitive advantage. Since nobody else is doing it, you already have something that nobody else is, and you're setting yourself apart from the marketplace. Every business has competition. Every business has lots of competition. Whatever you can do to set yourself apart and elevate yourself, something you should do. Also, it shows you have confidence. As a small business owner, when you're talking about your product or service, people buy from people who are confident. And so this is one way of showing your confidence. And also, here's the big one. It actually relaxes the prospect that they're talking to the right person. Because anytime you have this initial interaction with people, there's some stress there. And so when the prospect knows they're actually talking to the right person, that's really an important thing. So part of my selling process is to get each of my new business owners, instead doing a 15 to 45 second credibility intro, hitting it up front, and you'd be amazed at what happens. The second part of this whole thing is every new business needs a new supply of customers. We've talked about from the phone standpoint, from direct mail, all of these things. I call it a cap. And right now, most small business owners will spend some money on marketing, but in reality, a lot of the businesses that are starting right now have to prospect. And so I call this a cap, and the steps of doing a cap is, you've already heard this in another presentation, which is identify the prospects you want as customers and try and be as clear in your niche as possible. Then, using your individual strengths, decide how best to make the initial contract. If you look at people and you put them in two categories, there's a thing called an introvert and a thing called an extrovert, right? Extroverts, if you told them they had to go up and down the street and knock on doors and introduce themselves to people, they go, great, no problem. You do that with an introvert, they're probably going to throw up, because introverts can't do that. So we all have individual strengths. So as new business owners have developed their customer acquisition plans, some include knocking on doors. There's a plumber in Shakopee who runs his business out of his house, that all he does, he doesn't even have a website, but all he does is on Saturdays from 10 to 2, he knocks on doors. He introduces himself, he gives a valuable lead behind, he says, if you ever has a plumbing emergency, I'm the guy you need to call because I'm only 5 minutes away. I answer my cell phone 24/7. So I'm the guy you need to call. By the way, are there any plumbing issues you need to talk about right now? He's been doing this for 2.5 years. This year, he'll drop $130,000 into his pocket. And that's all he does. I've also had introverts that do other things as well. So whatever your strength is, introvert or extrovert, use that. Because if you try and do something that is part of your strength, you're going to end up failing. That's why Strength Finder, if anybody's done Strength Finder, is such a big thing. It tells you to work on your strengths, not try and work on your weaknesses. Okay, after you make the contact, make sure you have a valuable lead behind. And what do I mean by that? Well, it could be a coupon or cents off, but more likely it's a checklist or a 5 things to remember about. Something that shows you're the expert, that when you give them to a prospect or a potential customer, they're going to keep. And that's what you really want to do with this, is keep them. And coupons are one thing. I really like checklists or some part of education that you as a business owner can give your prospects. Then block off a period of time each day or week. It suggests you block off the same part of time because you want to make this a habit. A habit is something we do on a repeated basis that we don't have to actually think about very often. And so this actually was not invented by me, but a very good friend of mine here in Twin Cities runs a very successful actuarial consulting company called Zingle & Associates. 16 years ago, he decided that he was going to spend from 8 to noon every Friday doing nothing but going out after new business. 16 years later, if you try and get a hold of Mike on a Friday morning between 8 and 12, you won't get a hold of him because he's working his cap. He's developed it into a habit. People are always looking to me because I teach people how to start businesses, and they'll say, are there any guarantees? No, any business can fail at any time, but if you can make this customer acquisition plan a habit, that really does give you your best chance of success. And lastly, do the actions at the same time each day for 21 days or weeks, and that becomes a habit. Okay, the third one is we all are interested in doing presentations and everything like that. I told you I raised a lot of money. I raised about $8 million, and I did over 350 one-on-one investor presentations with high net worth individuals. And from that, I went to 24 before I got my first check, but when I got it was only like $5,000. But in those 24 no's, I got a PhD in how investors think and how they do things. And I realized that when you're doing an investor presentation and trying to raise money, investors don't make the decision to invest by reading a business plan. In fact, they don't even read business plans. If you think they do, they don't. They look at them, they may page through them, but that's about it. They also don't make the decision during the presentation. And I'm really good at being a presenter, but that's not when they were doing it. Where they made the decision to invest in me was during the question and answer periods before, during, or after the presentation. When I'm asking questions and they're answering, when they're asking me questions and I'm answering, that's where this whole process takes place. So as a new business owner, I wouldn't worry so much about presentations and all that. I'd worry about the questions you're going to ask the potential customer and the questions they're going to ask you, because that's when the cement takes place. That's where intuitively they say, yeah, I want to buy this or I want to invest in this person. So how do you do it? Well, one easy way is list a minimum of 20 questions you can ask a prospect. I do this in my sales classes, and it works really well. You have a list of questions. Then, list a minimum of 20 questions customers could ask you. And here's the big one, and here's where most people fall off. Practice answering the 20 questions. When I was doing all these investor meetings, people would ask me the same questions over and over, and gradually I developed a way of answering questions that showed I not only had confidence what I was doing, but the investors were going, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about, and that's what you want to have happen. Then the last thing is, and I want to talk about it, identify the most common objections that you're going to hear and practice your answers. And this is part of Q&A as well. A lot of salespeople are afraid of objections, because your price is too high, all these other sort of things. Actually, when you're hit with an objection, you should be really, really happy. And I would say react with sheer glee. The reason is people will not object unless they're actually interested in buying. That's really critical. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just go on for a second. How do you handle objections? There's 4 steps. Number 1, you can confirm the objection. By the way, what's the most 2 common objections? I just did this with the ECM people and everything else. What do you think the first one is?
Cost too much.
Cost of advertising, right? What do you think the second one is? Huh? The second one they most often heard is, I need to think it over. That is really the second one. And here's what's interesting. At that point, when you hear the I want to think it over objection, if you start answering or trying to get them to make a decision, you may find out that they are people that simply need time to think it over. So your job when you're coming up with an objection is to not only confirm the objection, but here's the big part. You need to question the objection to learn the real meaning. And most people, when they're hit with an objection, believe they've heard it correctly and start answering it or defending their position. Wrong thing to do. When you are hit with an objection, you need to confirm it and then question the objection to find out the real meaning. For example, if somebody says to you, I'm not going to buy this, your price is too freaking high. Okay, that's like the worst thing that can happen. So immediately as a salesperson, you may want to start defending your prices or that you don't think they see the value. You need to question the objection to find out what it really is. And your price is too high objection may be one of 3 things. It may be that they really don't see the value of what you're presenting based on the dollars involved. Okay, you answer it that way when you find it out. Or it could be, I don't have the money. And a lot of small business owners who deal with residents might run into that. They're objecting to this because they don't have money. But the third one is the big one, and it's simply, this is a negotiating tactic, and I want to see how far you're going to go down. And so if you question the objection and you find out what it is, and if you find out it's a negotiating tactic, now you're going to answer the objection one way. If you find out it is of value, you're going to answer it another. And if you find out they don't have the money, maybe there's some things you can do to work within your budget. So one of the things you want to do if you're hit with objections is just question the objection. Then answer the objection, make sure it's off the table, and then ask a trial close question. You all know what a closing is, right? It's a question that gets the business. Well, this is a great time to ask a trial close question, which is, okay, now that you understand why our pricing is the way it is, are we ready to get started? that is a trial closed question. They may say, yeah, great, okay, now we got the sale. Or they may say, nah, we got to talk about some other stuff, which is okay, because at least you're getting them to communicate. Okay, the last one, and this is, how am I doing on time?
Fine.
Am I really? Okay. I don't know how you're doing this. She's really good, isn't she? Yeah. I had to do a seminar at one time, not where there was hearing impaired, but there were Russians out in the audience. It was a chamber event, and I was supposed to talk to Russians about starting a business, and only you had to work through a translator. And so you talked for like a sentence, and then you'd wait for them to speak it in Russian. That is the worst experience of my life. I'll never do that again. Anyway, the habit number 4 is make each customer a proven customer. What do I mean by that? Having proof is really important because in this economy, prospects are really skeptical about anything. The word proof was over here. So proof is testimonials, referrals, all this other sort of stuff. Having proof is really important for somebody who doesn't sell all the time because it gives you confidence. If you've got customers saying, I'm really, really good, you can use that and it gives you confidence, especially if you're not that confident in your sales ability. Giving proof also makes it easier to overcome objections and keep your prices high. Now, what is proof? Proof could be awards, it could be degrees, could be before and after pictures, could be testimonials, it could be thank you cards. I was teaching a group of attorneys about this process of getting proof. And as I was talking to him, one of the partners looked at me and gave me kind of one of these looks that he was kind of pissed off at something. I said, what's wrong with you? And he said, nothing wrong that you said. But he said, do you know in the last 5 years, I'll bet you I've gotten over 100 thank you cards from clients, because this guy's really good. He's a patent attorney. And you know what I did with everyone? I opened it up, looked at it, and I tossed it away. He said, we should be putting all of those on our boardroom walls so everybody can see that. Yes, you should be doing that. So keep this stuff and put it together. Having proof is actually your best competitive advantage. Excuse me. In a small business environment where you've got a lot of competition, it's hard to come up with one competitive advantage over another. I believe that whoever has the most proof has the best competitive advantage. And so your job is to get proof. And I would recommend that every business owner keep with them what I call a proven portfolio. This is actually mine. I keep this with me anytime I'm going to promote myself. In here, and I can show it to you after the fact, are student surveys, it's awards that I've won, it's what people have said about me, it's testimonial letters, all that stuff. And so often we forget about this thing called proof. And we may have a few testimonials on a website or everything like that. But if you want to separate yourself as a small business owner from the rest of the competition, proof is really key. So as I'm teaching my classes, I focus not only on these 4 areas, but a few more as well. But if as a business owner, you can remember just a few of these things, you don't have to be a full-time professional salesperson. You can run your business, but when you have to sell, if you remember these things, you're going to do a whole lot better job. So remember, establish your credibility up front, develop a CAP, customer acquisition plan, using your individual strengths and make it a habit. Q&A is really important, and some of this does take experience, and make each customer a proven customer, and I'm done. Thank you. How do you do?
So I'm going to use some of that knowledge that I just picked up. New Business Minnesota has been around for 5 years, and how's this for number? I've delivered my paper to over 120,000 new businesses during that time. It's a lot of people out there doing a lot of great work, and tough economy, and getting really good information like we got tonight, I think has been very useful. Thank you to all of our presenters. And this is the first time at all the events that we've done over the years that we've had anybody signing. And I just want to thank the signers. It was really fun to watch you guys. So now we're all going to head down to the atrium up here, and there's a little bar off to the side if you want to get a beverage. There's some tables that are set up. Start introducing yourself to each other. Ask questions of the presenters, and if you want copies of their PowerPoints, go up and ask them for them. So thank you very much.